This is the start of side 2. We now return to local news with Joan, who will start with sport.
And I'm to start with sports shorts. That's because the report we've got is very short. I thought I'd better make that clear. It's all about football. Enfield Town have been handed a trip to North Greenford United in the second round of next season's Middlesex Senior Cup. The draw for the early rounds of the competition was made on Friday, and having been awarded a bye in the first round, Town will make their entrance at Southern League Division 1 Central outfit North Greenford on a date yet to be arranged. Enfield 1893 face a trip to Wembley in the first round with an away tie at Spelthorne Sports or Bedfont Sports awaiting the winners. Meanwhile, Town forward Corey Whiteley has been rewarded for his excellent form during last season by being named in the Ryman Premier Division's Team of the Year. Well done.
And I have a sports short. It's youth games. Enfield's boys table tennis team have secured a place in next month's finals of the Balfour Beatty London Youth Games after easing through the qualifying event on Sunday. The youngsters were in sparkling form at Redbridge Leisure Centre as they crushed former champions Greenwich 5-0 and also enjoyed resounding wins over Haringey and Redbridge to book their place in the finals at Crystal Palace on July the 5th. "We're very pleased," said team manager Colin Ford. "We had 2 good players and they performed really well. It'll be tougher in the finals. We've got a history of doing fairly well, but this year I think it's going to be difficult. There will be some good teams in the finals."
Well, I've got a letter that came from Jonathan Wheeler, the president of the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers in Islington. The impact of asbestos on a worker's health usually does not come to light until many years after exposure, at which time the employer's insurance details have sometimes been lost or destroyed, making it impossible for victims to pursue compensation. People dying of the fatal asbestos-related lung cancer, mesothelioma, can now turn to a payment scheme in this event, which provides redress to help make them comfortable in their final months. This development came after several years of campaigning by many victims groups, including the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers. But the many workers suffering and dying from asbestos-related cancers and industrial diseases other than mesothelioma are excluded. The government can and should start making positive change by extending the scheme to help those people who find themselves in a horrifying situation because an employer failed to protect them. The relief for victims of mesothelioma and their families is a good start, but more needs to be done.
And I have a letter from Valerie Budd, who's from the Drive Enfield. And she says, "I wish the new charity for Chase Farm Hospital well. New hospital charity aims to improve service. Enfield Independent June the 3rd. The aim to add value and improve the experience of being in hospital is excellent, but I must challenge the statement that this will give them, the patients, something they have never had. Over many years, the League of Hospital Friends, based at Chase Farm, has raised funds up to £400,000 a year to provide equipment and services, including the refurbishment of operating theatres. For individual patients, nearly 3,000 care packs of toiletries have been donated by the Mothers' Union in Clay Hill. These have been paid for by the League of Friends, the Cooperative Community Fund, and members of the Mothers' Union. In working to improve the experience of patients, please do not belittle the achievements of volunteers who have previously done that and are still doing so.
School children received an unexpected half-day's holiday on Monday afternoon after a water main burst in a nearby street. Parents of pupils at Eldon Infants and Junior School in Eldon Road, Edmonton, were contacted by the school at lunchtime to come and collect their youngsters. It followed the burst water main in Exeter Road, either that morning, which left scores of homes without drinking water. The burst main also reduced water pressure in surrounding properties, including the school, disrupting water supplies and making it difficult to flush toilets. Head teacher Julie Messer said, "We had knock-on effects with the supply to the site, but it was restored later that day and the school reopened as normal the next day." Thames Water fixed the burst pipe and restored supplies to homes late on Monday afternoon. However, with Exeter Road remaining dug up and closed to traffic, residents faced further inconvenience and disruption. A spokeswoman for Thames Water said their engineers finished repairing the burst water main at 4 p.m. on Monday. "We're sorry to anyone who was affected by low water pressure," she added. "We fixed the pipe and water supplies should be back to normal."
Students have given their seal of approval to a £6 million specialist centre for people with learning difficulties in Southgate. The Learners with Learning Difficulties and Disabilities Centre of Excellence at Barnet and Southgate College was officially opened in April by gold medal winning Paralympian and Women's London Wheelchair Marathon winner Baroness Tani Gray-Thompson. David Holloway, Curriculum Manager for Learning Difficulties and Mental Health at Barnet and Southgate College's Southgate campus in High Street, said, "The students are extremely overjoyed to be using such a great facility. It's a state-of-the-art facility in a mainstream campus. It is also used by groups including the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation, MenCap and Sense, which works with deaf-blind people. Facilities include a sensory room equipped with a relaxation area and a space for multi-sensory learning to teach communication skills. Part of the floor vibrates and plays music when students dance on it, and they can interact with images of musical instruments and pictures of rock pools and lily ponds projected onto the wall and floor. There's also a hypotherapy pool, specialist classroom, a sports hall, a cafe, a training flat, and a drama room. Students with learning difficulties aged between 18 and 24 use the centre as well as other facilities on the campus. Mr. Holloway said, "For many of them, it's a stepping stone to be integrated with the mainstream college. We are about preparing somebody for an independent adulthood and to be economically active, he added. People can look round during the open day at the Southgate campus from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, June the 27th.
Are you bored with conventional tennis? Your luck must be just in, as two brothers have set up one of the first paddle tennis courts in the country. Paul and Graham Taff have brought the Mexican take on the racket sport to Hazelwood Tennis Club in Ridge Avenue, Winchmore Hill. A doubles game, paddle tennis is played on an enclosed court half the size of a regular tennis court. Scoring is the same, but players are able to play the ball off the walls, similar to squash. The rackets are solid and stringless, and the ball must be served from below the waist. Popular in Hispanic countries, paddle tennis is one of the fastest growing sports across the world. Graham Taff is excited by the project. He said, "This is the first in North London, and we want to offer something very different to the people in Enfield. It is very easy for kids to play and is great fun." The club has organised a community open day on June the 28th between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. at which people can play for free, enjoy a barbecue and watch the UK's best paddle tennis players battle it out in an exhibition match.
Spending decades on the front line of campaigning earned Enfield resident Irene Wilson recognition in the Queen's Birthday Honours. The 84-year-old of Carnarvon Avenue was awarded the British Empire Medal for services to the community. "To be honest, I would like to thank the people who put me forward for this," Mrs. Wilson told the Advertiser. "I know one of the people who nominated me, and I would like to say a big thank you to them. The great-grandmother of 3 has championed campaigns throughout her 52-year-old career with the Willow Road Residents Association. She joined the battle to save the accident and emergency department at Chase Farm Hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield, and has fought to keep the indoor bowls facility at the David Lloyd Leisure Centre in Carterhatch Lane, Enfield. Her involvement in community agitating started when she first moved to the Carnarvon Avenue 5 decades ago. I moved from a small terraced house to this lovely home with lots of open space around it. And then I heard that the council wanted to build a block of flats at the bottom of my garden," she said. "So of course I campaigned against that." Mrs. Wilson admitted she has become something of the resident agony aunt for her neighbours. She helped out when they were wrongly signed up to switching their gas and electricity accounts. "I felt quite humbled as neighbours trusted me with their personal details, their bank details, everything," she said. And she says that she has remained such a community stalwart for all these years because that's what it's all about. "I hope that there's somebody there for me when I need them," she added. "That's what neighbourliness is really, isn't it?" Also awarded the British Empire Medal was Alan Jones, President of Edmonton Sea Cadets, based in Advent Way.
Directors turned old student halls into a makeshift film set. BBC 3 moved into Trent Park in Snakes Lane, Cockfosters, to shoot Murder in Successville, a sitcom in which guest stars solve crimes. The homes sit next to the Grade 2 listed Trent Park mansion and was sold to Malaysia's Alliance University College of Medical Sciences for £30.9 million in 2013. But when the university went into liquidation, plans to build on the site were abandoned, leaving it empty except for 2 security guards. The site has sparked much debate amongst park groups who are hoping to safeguard the historic mansion's future over fears it could be sold and turned into houses. An application by the Save Trent Park campaign to make the site an asset of community value was recently rejected by Enfield Council, but a working group has been set up by councillors to ensure the mansion and accommodation is used for public value. Whatever that means.
Runnymede was brought to Enfield as King John signed the Magna Carta. Of course, it was not the actual King John, but a reenactment at Chase Green in Windmill Hill, Enfield, on Monday, to mark the 800th anniversary of the end of the conflict between the King and the Barons. Passers-by looked on as the treaty was signed at 2 p.m. Commemorations will continue on Saturday, July the 11th, with an evening of poetry and music led by poet John Murray at 40 Hall, 40 Hill. Councillor Achilles Georgiou, deputy leader of Enfield Council, said, "The signing of the Magna Carta is such an important historic event, and at Enfield Council we really want to bring heritage to life for residents. We hope that these exciting events, all based on the signing of the Magna Carta, will do this."
A boxing club which has helped stamp out gang violence has been recognised by the Queen. Volunteers at Edmonton Eagles Amateur Boxing Club in Montague Road, Edmonton, have added to their bulging trophy cabinet with their latest win. The group last week announced it was one of 7 across the capital to be given a Queen's Award, described as an MBE for groups. The club was set up 11 years ago following a number of stabbings in the area. More than 17 volunteers train more than 250 people a week, providing all the equipment free of charge. Head coach Kostakis Evangelou, who was invited to the Queen's Garden Party at Buckingham Palace last year, said, "Boxing teaches young people many things, discipline and skill, and it is also a release for many teens. Before this club was here, there was a lot of violence in the area, gangs from different postcodes. It was not safe. Since then, we have invited young people into our club, and we have seen a marked change in the crime rates." Coach Kairi Yalouris said it is a proud moment for the club. Well done.
An optician raised more than £650 for a hospice. Specsavers in Green Lanes, Palmer's Green, raised £667 for North London Hospice by donating £1 for every free eye test carried out in the store. Jennifer Shee, North London Hospice's corporate engagement manager, added, "We are extremely grateful to Specsavers for its support."
Enfield Southgate MP David Burrowes has been elected to the leadership of a historic committee giving backbenchers a voice. Tory MPs have elected Burrowes onto the 12-strong executive of the 1922 committee. The Southgate MP said, "I am delighted to be elected to the executive of the 1922 committee. This is an important time for Parliament with a newly elected Conservative, but a small majority. There are key issues around membership of the EU, a fair devolution settlement, and fulfilling our pledge to be a one-nation government which needs a strong voice from the backbenches. I look forward to being that strong voice."
The owners of 2 care homes have been fined more than £22,000 for failing to employ managers. Mr. and Mrs. T.F. Chon failed to employ a registered manager at Parkside in Village Road or Elmhurst in Queens Road, Enfield. The Care Quality Commission had previously fined the company £8,000 and ordered them to employ managers. However, the company failed to pay the notice and appeared at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court, where it pleaded guilty to 2 charges of being in breach of the conditions of their registration. Mr. and Mrs. Chon were fined £11,250 for each offence and ordered to pay costs of £8,600. Sally Warren, Deputy Chief Inspector of Adult Social Care in London, said, "The role of registered manager is vital to ensure that people receive care services that are safe, effective, caring and responsive. A competent and qualified manager provides leadership and experience, and they are legally responsible with the provider for ensuring that care meets the required standards. I welcome the court's verdict in sending out a clear message that their failure to have a registered manager in post from October 2010 is a clear breach of the law."
Pupils put their feet to the pedals for a cycle ride against poverty. More than 20 children from St Anne's Catholic High School in London Road, Enfield, took part in Pedal Against Poverty for the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, known as CABOD. Teacher John Ravi praised the pupils for taking part in the 19-mile ride from Ponders End Lock to Broxbourne. He said, "The pupils at St Anne's chose to support CABOD after a volunteer was invited in to talk about the overseas development work of the charity. In its 9th year, the cycle ride has raised more than £100,000.
Rewards are being offered to help catch serial fly tippers in the borough. The £200 payment by Enfield Council is intended to bring those who flout rubbish regulations to justice. Opposition Conservative councillors recently slammed the work of the local authority, claiming it needs to do more to clean up Enfield. But Councillor Daniel Anderson, Labour's Cabinet Member for Environment, called on those who knew who fly tippers are to come forward. He said, "We have a collective responsibility as a community to keep our borough clean, and we all need to play our part in making sure it stays tidy. That's why we want residents to join forces with us and name names. We want them to help us to expose those who are fouling our environment by fly tipping on our streets and parklands. And the best way of reporting fly tips when spotted is through our website. By working together, we can track down and prosecute those people intent on ruining our environment and also make sure that fly tips that do occur are reported and removed promptly."
Park users who feel intimidated by gangs hanging around it at a bus shelter have called for it to be taken down. The shelter in Ponders End recreational ground in High Street was part of a 1 million refurbishment that included a new basketball court and seating areas. But people using the park are concerned at the levels of disturbance caused by teenagers hanging around the shelter. Rachel MacLeod, who lives in Derby Road opposite the park, said, "Large groups of boys go to the shelter at night and hang around there until the early hours. I feel intimidated when I take my children there. Now the summer is upon us, people will hang around there more often. It's become a centre for trouble and a real shame because the park has been massively improved." There have been 20 reports of antisocial behaviour in the park in the past 6 months, according to police. Enfield Council is now considering removing the shelter. Jemal Mehmet of Queensway Ponders End believes it would be the right decision. He said, "I have no idea why the shelter is there. It's a waste of money. There are plenty of seats in the park, and I think the council has made a mistake by not getting rid of it sooner." A council spokesman said, "Over a number of months, we have had reports of antisocial behaviour in Ponders End Park Centre around the shelter. We are looking at improving feelings of safety within the park and encourage more people to use the community asset, which recently underwent a £1 million refurbishment. Enfield Council thinks removing the shelter will achieve this aim, but wants to gauge the views of park users and residents before we do, to ensure they can give their views on the future of the shelter."
We have reached the end of our programme for this week. Thank you for listening. So from the team of
Joan
and myself, Lilian, with Colin on controls, it's goodbye, cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the cassette into the packet, and return it to us as soon as possible in readiness for the next edition. The Enfield Talking newspaper will be with you again in 1 week's time.